Commander Nikolai Volkov stared at the holographic projection floating above his desk, his weathered face illuminated by the blue light of distant stars. The orbital defense satellite had captured something extraordinary, an alien vessel, cloaked but not invisible to Earth's quantum detection grid, observing humanity from the dark side of Mars. "They're watching us again," he muttered, taking a sip of cold coffee. Third sighting this month. His office, buried 2 kilometers beneath the lunar surface in the secret facility, codenamed Bulwark, was spartanly furnished with only his desk, a few chairs, and walls lined with screens monitoring Earth's hidden defenses. A soft chime announced Dr. Amara Okoffer's arrival. The brilliant physicist entered, her dark eyes immediately focusing on the hologram. "Another observer?" she asked, setting down her tablet. "Same configuration as before?" Nikolai nodded. "Identical energy signature. They're being thorough. I'll give them that." Amara pulled up a chair, her slender frame tense with concentration. The translation algorithm finished processing their communications. "It's as we suspected. They call themselves the Celestial Concordat, a coalition of 27 spacefaring civilizations. They're planning to claim our solar system. And they think we're what? Just simple primates fumbling with rockets?" Nikolai zoomed in on the alien vessel's scan patterns. "Precisely," Amara smiled thinly. "Our surface-level technology is primitive. By their standards, nuclear power, combustion engines, primitive space stations. They're completely unaware of what we've built below the surface. For 70 years, Earth had detected alien probes at the edge of the solar system. Rather than announcing their discovery, world leaders had made the unprecedented decision to maintain a technological facade while secretly developing advanced defenses. On the surface, humanity appeared to be taking its first tentative steps into space. Below ground, beneath the lunar surface, inside hollowed-out asteroids, and within the moons of Jupiter, a vastly different reality existed. "Operation Masquerade has served us well," Nikolai said, closing the hologram. "How are the Jupiter shipyards progressing?" "The last battle cruiser will be complete next week. That brings our fleet to 800 vessels, all with quantum shielding and gravitic weapons." Amara's voice carried a hint of pride. "The phase shift technology we reverse engineered from their probes has been implemented across the board." Nikolai walked to the viewport, overlooking the massive underground lunar hangar. Rows of sleek warships stood in formation, their hulls gleaming under artificial light. And they have no idea. Their arrogance blinds them. Human history is filled with powerful empires underestimating supposedly primitive adversaries, Amara said, joining him at the window. "It rarely ends well for the Empire." A priority alert flashed on Nikolai's communicator. He checked the message, his expression darkening. "They're coming," he announced. "A Concordat has dispatched what they call a diplomatic fleet, 500 warships led by their Grand Marshal Jex Tal. Estimated arrival, 3 days." Amara's breath caught. "So soon?" "We expected at least another month of preparation." "It seems the Celestial Concordat is eager to add us to their collection." Nikolai activated the command center's alert system. "Notify all installations. Maintain surface protocols, but bring all defensive systems to standby. And contact Director Reynolds. We'll need her diplomatic skills." "Do you think they'll actually attempt diplomacy?" Amara asked skeptically. Nikolai's laugh held no humor. "They'll offer us terms of surrender dressed up as an alliance. When we refuse, they'll show their true intentions." He gestured toward the fleet. "And then we'll show ours." As alarm klaxons began to sound throughout the facility, Nikolai felt a strange calm settle over him. Humanity had prepared for this moment for generations, hidden in plain sight, waiting for the day the stars would bring their first true test. "And so it begins," he whispered. **, the Harbinger's arrival, The celestial Concordat flagship Inevitable Dominion emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system, its massive silhouette eclipsing distant stars. Grand Marshal Jex Tal stood on the command deck, his scaled skin catching the light as he surveyed the holographic display of the primitive blue planet. "Pathetic," he remarked to his senior staff. "Their most advanced vessels still use chemical propulsion. This will be the simplest annexation of my career." Beside him, Senior Advisor Viridian maintained a diplomatic posture, his lean frame perfectly still as he studied the display with more curiosity than contempt. Unlike most of the Coralax species, who served the Concordat with unquestioning loyalty, Viridian had always been fascinated by emerging civilizations. "The Council's directives suggest offering standard integration terms first, Marshal," Viridian reminded him. "Every species deserves the opportunity to join willingly." Jex Tal flicked a dismissive hand, the ridge of spines along his forearm bristling, a formality. "These humans will either accept our generous terms or face immediate subjugation. Prepare the communication array. Let's introduce ourselves." On Earth, Ambassador Fiona Reynolds adjusted her formal attire as technicians prepared the United Nations Assembly Hall for first contact. At 43, she had handled countless international crises, but nothing had prepared her for representing humanity to an alien coalition. "They're hailing us, Ambassador," a technician announced, voice tight with tension. Fiona nodded, her auburn hair catching the light. "Put them through. Remember, everyone appears surprised and overwhelmed. No one deviates from the protocol." The massive screen flickered to life, revealing Jex Tal's imposing figure. Gasps echoed through the assembly hall, not entirely feigned, as seeing an alien life form remained shocking despite their preparations. "People of Earth," Jex Tal began, his translated voice booming through the speakers. "I am Grand Marshal Jex Tal of the Celestial Concordat, governing authority of 37 star systems. Your world sits upon a valuable hyperspace junction. We offer you technological advancement and protection in exchange for your immediate integration into our dominion." Fiona stepped forward, her heart pounding but her voice steady. "Grand Marshal, I am Ambassador Reynolds of Earth. Your arrival is unexpected. We require time to consider such a momentous proposal. You have 48 hours, Jex Tal declared, after which we will consider any response other than acceptance as rejection." As the transmission ended, Fiona noticed a different alien slender, with iridescent skin, studying her with unmistakable interest before the screen went dark. Beneath the lunar surface, Nikolai activated the secure communication channel. "Ambassador Reynolds, well handled. What's your assessment?" "They're overconfident, dismissive," Fiona replied from her private office. "Exactly as we predicted. But there was one, an advisor, I think, who seemed different, more thoughtful." "Potential leverage?" Nikolai asked. "Perhaps request permission to engage in direct negotiations aboard their vessel." A long pause followed. "Granted, but extreme caution. This is still primarily an intelligence-gathering mission." On the Inevitable Dominion, Viridian approached Jex Tal. "Marshal, the human representative has requested a diplomatic meeting. I recommend accepting." "What possible purpose would that serve?" Jex Tal scoffed. "Understanding their psychology will facilitate a smoother transition," Viridian suggested. "Allow me to handle this meeting." Jex Tal waved his approval. "Fine. Entertain their delusions of importance if you must." Hours later, Fiona's shuttle approached the colossal alien flagship, maintaining the charade of primitive technology while secretly scanning the vessel's defenses. Inside, she carried not only diplomatic credentials, but also quantum encrypted surveillance technology disguised as ordinary jewelry. When she arrived on the flagship, Viridian greeted her with a formal gesture. "Ambassador Reynolds, welcome aboard the Inevitable Dominion. I am Senior Advisor Viridian. Their eyes met, and for a moment, Fiona felt a strange connection, as though this alien understood more than his superiors. Thank you for receiving. Advisor Viridian, she replied carefully. I hope our civilizations can find common ground. Viridian's expression shifted subtly. As do I, Ambassador. As do I, asterisk. Breach of protocol. The diplomatic quarters aboard the inevitable Dominion were designed to intimidate. Cavernous ceilings, stark lighting, and furnishings clearly uncomfortable for human physiology. Fiona maintained her composure as Viridian guided her through the preliminary negotiations, aware that every word was being monitored by both sides. The Concordat's terms are non-negotiable, Viridian stated formally, sliding a data tablet toward her. Full access to your system's resources, governance under Concordat law, and immediate cessation of all independent military activities. Fiona scanned the document, playing her role perfectly. These terms would effectively end Earth's sovereignty. Surely there's room for a more equitable arrangement. A marshal does not believe in equity between advanced civilizations and developing ones. Viridian's voice carried the slightest hint of disagreement. 3 hours of circular discussions later, Viridian abruptly stood. We will adjourn for now. Allow me to escort you to your quarters. Once inside the guest suite, Viridian did something unexpected. He activated a small device that emitted a soft hum, then spoke quietly. We can speak freely now. This creates a temporary disruption in surveillance. Fiona's eyes widened, her diplomatic mask slipping momentarily. Why would you need to speak privately with me? Because I've studied your species extensively. Viridian moved closer, his voice dropping further. Your television broadcasts, your literature, your history. They tell a different story than our intelligence reports. Humans are far more complex, and the Marshal understands. And what does the Marshal believe? Fiona asked carefully. That you're primitive, easily conquered. That your technological development follows standard patterns. Viridian's iridescent skin shifted hues slightly. But I've observed anomalies. Energy fluctuations near your Jupiter. Unusual mineral depletion in your asteroid belt. Inconsistencies. Fiona maintained her composure despite her racing heart. Perhaps your intelligence has gaps. Perhaps, Viridian agreed, his eyes fixed on hers. Or perhaps humanity is more than it appears. Their conversation was interrupted by an alert chime. Viridian deactivated his device immediately. The Marshal requests your presence on the observation deck. A demonstration has been arranged. The observation deck revealed Earth hanging like a blue jewel against the blackness of space. Jextal stood imposingly as they entered. Ambassador Reynolds, he greeted without warmth. I thought you might appreciate a demonstration of Concordat power. He gestured to a weapons officer. Target their lunar outpost. Fiona fought to hide her alarm. Marshal, surely. A minor energy pulse only, Jextal clarified with cruel amusement. Just enough to disable their primitive communication array. A reminder of the futility of resistance. As the weapon charged, Fiona caught Viridian's eye. Something passed between them. A moment of understanding, perhaps even trust. Firing, announced the weapons officer Dot. The beam lanced toward the lunar surface, directly toward Bulwark's hidden entrance. Fiona held her breath. Seconds later, the unexpected happened. The beam dissipated harmlessly against an invisible barrier. Jextal's expression shifted from smugness to confusion. Report, he demanded. Unknown defensive technology, Marshal, the officer responded, bewildered. The energy was completely absorbed. Jextal turned to Fiona, suspicion darkening his features. Explain this. She maintained her diplomatic smile. Perhaps your intelligence has gaps, Marshal. Later that night, Viridian appeared at Fiona's quarters. You're in danger. The Marshal is convinced your people have been concealing advanced technology. He's preparing for immediate military action. Why are you telling me this? Fiona asked, studying his features. Viridian stepped closer, their faces inches apart. Because I believe there are better ways than conquest. Because in all my studies of humanity, I've found something the Concordat lacks: diversity of thought, creativity, compassion. Their eyes held for a long moment before Viridian broke away. You should return to Earth immediately. Prepare. Your people. As he turned to leave, Fiona caught his arm. Come with me. Viridian's expression revealed his internal conflict. I cannot betray my people. Not betrayal, Fiona countered. Evolution. Help us find a better solution. The unveiling the command center beneath the lunar surface hummed with controlled urgency as Nikolai reviewed Ambassador Reynolds' report. Beside him, Dr. Amara Okafor analyzed the sensor data from Fiona's covert scans of the Concordat flagship. Their primary weapons are impressive, but predictable, Amara noted. Similar to our phase cannon technology, though their power generation exceeds ours by roughly 15%. Nikolai nodded grimly. And this advisor, Viridian, you trust him? Fiona's holographic image flickered slightly. I believe his concerns are genuine. He risked everything to warn me. Or it's an elaborate trap, Nikolai countered. The timing is convenient. They detect our defenses, and suddenly one of them wants to help. He's different, Fiona insisted. He sees the potential for cooperation rather than conquest. The strategic discussion was interrupted as alert signals blared throughout the facility. A junior officer rushed to Nikolai's side. Commander, the Concordat fleet is moving into attack. Formation. They've launched fighter squadrons toward Earth's atmosphere. So much for their 48-hour deadline, Nikolai muttered. Activate all defense grids. Deploy lunar and Martian fleets. Maintain Jupiter reserves in stealth mode. Across the solar system, humanity's hidden forces emerged from their concealment. Ships rose from the lunar surface. Asteroid bases revealed massive weapon emplacements, and the moons of Jupiter disgorged sleek battlecruisers that accelerated. Toward Earth, aboard the inevitable Dominion, Jextal watched in disbelief as his tactical display updated with thousands of new contacts. Impossible, he breathed. Where did they come from? Viridian stood quietly at the rear of the command deck, his expression unreadable. It appears we significantly underestimated human capabilities, Marshal. A deception, Jextal snarled. They've been planning this all along. He turned to his weapons officer. Target their largest vessels. Full barrage. The space between Earth and the Moon erupted in energy discharges as the battle began. Human vessels, nimble despite their size, executed complex maneuvers that confused Concordat targeting systems. Earth's defense grid activated, creating a hemisphere of protective energy that intercepted incoming attacks. Fiona, now aboard the Iona. Earth Defense Command vessel Defiant watched the battle unfold with a mixture of pride and sorrow. Humanity had prepared for this moment, but the cost would still be high. A communication alert flashed on her console, a private channel from the Concordat flagship. She accepted it immediately, revealing Viridian's tense face. The Marshal has ordered all reserves into the fight, he said without preamble. He's targeting your civilian populations next. Fiona's blood ran cold. We anticipated this. Our cities are shielded, but they won't hold indefinitely. I can help, Viridian offered, his voice dropping. The flagship's defense systems have a synchronization vulnerability. A precisely timed electromagnetic pulse could temporarily disable their shields. Why would you do this? Fiona asked, searching his eyes through the screen. Because this war is unnecessary, Viridian replied. Because I've come to believe there's another path forward. He hesitated. And because I've come to care what happens to you. The admission hung between them, unexpected yet somehow inevitable. Before Fiona could respond, the ship rocked from a nearby impact. I'm sending the shield specifications now. Viridian said, Fiona ... be careful. Nikolai received the transmitted data with skepticism. It could be misinformation. It's not, Fiona insisted. I staked my life on it. After a moment's consideration, Nikolai nodded. Prepare the EMP weapon. Target the Concordat flagship. All vessels, concentrate fire on these coordinates once their shields drop. The battle reached its crescendo as humanity's forces executed the coordinated attack. The EMP struck the inevitable Dominion, precisely as Viridian had indicated, causing its shields to flicker and fail. Precision strikes followed immediately, disabling the flagship's weapons and propulsion systems without destroying the vessel. The command deck, Jextall roared in outrage as systems failed around him. Find the traitor. Someone gave them our specifications. His eyes fell on Viridian, understanding dawning in his expression. You. It was you. Before security could apprehend him, Viridian activated an emergency transport device, disappearing in a flash of light. A new equilibrium 3 months after what historians would later call the Revelation conflict. Earth had transformed from a seemingly insignificant world to a recognized power in interstellar politics. The celestial Concordat, facing its first major defeat in centuries, had been forced to accept humanity as equals rather than subjects. Nikolai Volkov stood at the window of the newly established Earth Embassy on neutral territory, a space station orbiting between Earth and Mars. Behind him, representatives from 17 Concordat species engaged in animated discussion with human delegates, negotiating everything from trade agreements to cultural exchanges. Did you ever imagine this outcome when we began Operation Masquerade? Amara asked, joining him at the VIEWP ORT. Nikolai shook his head. I expected survival, not partnership. Humans have always excelled at adapting to unexpected circumstances. Speaking of adaptation, Amara nodded toward a side chamber where Fiona Reynolds was deep in conversation with Viridian, who had been granted asylum on Earth after his defection. Those two have become quite the diplomatic power couple. Inside a private meeting room, Fiona and Viridian reviewed the latest proposal for technological exchange between Earth and the reformed Concordat. Your people continue to surprise me, Viridian admitted. 6 new innovations in quantum communication in just 3 months. The Concordat scientists are struggling to keep pace. We had centuries of science fiction imagining what might be possible. Fiona explained with a smile. Once we understood the basic principles from your probes, we just needed to make the dreams reality. Viridian's hand rested near hers on the table, their fingers almost touching. The marshal has been replaced. The new Concordat leadership is more flexible in their thinking. A positive development, Fiona agreed, allowing her hand to move closer until their fingers intertwined, an increasingly familiar gesture between them. There's still resistance, Viridian cautioned. Many species believe the Concordat should never negotiate with younger civilizations. Change takes time, Fiona replied. But we've made a start. Their moment of connection was interrupted as Nikolai entered the room. Ambassador, Advisor Viridian, we've received word that the Trilaxian delegation has arrived. They're interested in joining our coalition rather than remaining with the traditional Concordat structure. The 3rd species this month, Viridian noted with satisfaction. Our vision for cooperation is gaining momentum. Later that evening, as celebrations for the new alliance continued throughout the station, Fiona and Viridian found a quiet moment on an observation deck overlooking Earth. Your world looks peaceful from here, Viridian observed. Hard to believe it harbored such formidable defenses. Humanity learned early in its history that peace requires strength, Fiona replied. But strength without wisdom leads to destruction. Viridian turned to face her fully. I've been offered a permanent position as liaison to Earth. And? Fiona asked, her heart quickening. I've accepted, he said simply. My future is here now. The unspoken meaning hung between them, a bridge across the stars that neither had anticipated, but both now embraced. As they stood together, watching, Earth rotates slowly beneath them. The boundaries between their worlds seemed to fade dot in the command center. Nikolai received reports from the Jupiter shipyards, where human and alien engineers worked side by side developing new technologies. The defensive posture that had defined humanity's approach to the stars was gradually transforming into something more, not abandoning caution, but embracing possibility. To think, Amara mused, reviewing the latest collaborative research. All this began because we chose deception over confrontation, and ended because we chose revelation over destruction, Nikolai added. Perhaps that's humanity's greatest strength, knowing when to hide, when to fight, and when to extend a hand in friendship. Beyond the station, stars glittered against. The void, no longer just distant lights, but doorways to new worlds and new understandings. Humanity had entered the galactic community not as conquerors or the conquered, but as architects of a new equilibrium, where difference became strength and ancient enemies could forge unexpected bonds. The universe, it seemed, had much to learn. From the species that had hidden in plain sight, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal not just their power, but their capacity for transformation.